some states are trying to step up where Congress failed. In Vermont, Republican governor and a Democratic state legislature signed off on a $1,000 tax credit for every child 5 and under. Phil Scott, the state's Republican governor, had initially proposed a wider set of tax cuts. In a statement, Governor Scott said it would have helped a broader cross-section of taxpayers, but that this bill is a step in the right direction. Everybody, what are your thoughts on President Biden so far? So it is here. Lawmakers have approved a new financial relief program. These checks will be worth at least $300. And now new extra stimulus cash will be making its way to thousands of Americans in the form of $300 direct payments as soon as this summer. Hawaii's governor first proposed a tax refund in his 2022 State of the State address. The governor signed it into law this week. He told reporters at the start of 2022, "We made a commitment to support programs and policies that would help our residents get back on their feet." Both bills represent a collaborative effort to bring the people of Hawaii some relief as we continue to recover from a 2-year crisis. So in order to be eligible for a tax refund under this legislation, you have to earn less than $100,000 a year. And for those whose earnings are above those thresholds, you will receive $100. The tax rebate package will benefit taxpayers and dependents who filed in the state, and is expected to cost the state about $250 million. That means an eligible family of 4 could earn up to $1,200 in state funds. And according to the Department of Taxation, refunds are due to start rolling out in the last week of August. The measure also commits $500 million to Hawaii's rainy day fund and prepays $300 million for retirement liabilities. The second bill passed increases the state's minimum wage for the first time since 2018, from $10 an hour to $12 an hour starting October, and it will increase to $14 an hour in 2024, $16 an hour in 2026, and then $18 an hour in 2028. Now, rebates will continue for hundreds of thousands of people in New Mexico. However, unlike the first 2 rounds of stimulus, in May and June, the last anticipated effort from July have some strings attached. Specifically, the upcoming rebates have an income threshold, meaning those who made over a certain amount of money in the 2021 calendar year will not be eligible. The latest tax rebate checks are eligible for New Mexico residents who filed their 2021 taxes. As mentioned, there's an income threshold tied to these rebates, which is different for both single filers and joint filers. According to the New Mexico Tax and Revenue Department, the rebates should be processing during the first full week of July, or next week, and Moore says it will take the full month for the rebates to get out to eligible taxpayers. So for many people, you may not receive a payment for several weeks. As for how the payments will be rolled out, well, the state will pay July rebates automatically, via direct deposit or paper check. Checks will be sent to those who don't have a direct deposit bank information on file with the state. The state expects to print about 210,000 paper checks. So in printing 14,000 checks per day, the process is expected to take several weeks to complete. By comparison, the state says it expects to distribute about 500,000 payments via direct deposit.
Thank you very much, and I thank the gentleman. The gentlewoman from North Carolina, Ms. Adams, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Chair Powell. Good to see you again. I'm happy that we can now congratulate you on your confirmation as you continue to serve as chair. Also, I'm delighted that Dr. Lisa Cook, an HBCU graduate and the first Black woman on the Fed board, and Dr. Philip Jefferson, the 4th Black man, and someone who teaches in my district at Davidson, have joined you as well. So, as we've discussed before, you know how concerned I am about the housing market, and according to your February monetary policy report, our housing shortage has been intensified by the growing cost of construction materials. So, Chair Powell, how do you think the Fed's interest rate increase will impact the cost of construction?
So I think it's going to lead to, and it is leading to, a slowdown in the housing market. You're seeing fewer buyers. You're seeing housing starts move back. That the housing market's going to be cooling off. It's been very, very hot. Price increases have been extraordinarily high. And it's one of the channels through which monetary policy works, is intersensitive spending in particular. So I do think it doesn't directly affect construction costs, to your question, but many housing builders, many home builders do work on borrowed money, and it'll.
Soda is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome back to the committee. Chair Powell, it's good to see you again. I want to follow up on this issue of this imbalance between labor demand and supply, as you were just referring to. According to the latest figures from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there were 5.5 million more jobs in April than available workers. And so we have, as a result, an extremely competitive labor market and very strong wage growth. But inflation is even higher than wage growth, so that's wiping out worker gains and leaving a lot of folks with what amounts to a pay cut as they, at the same time, try to figure out how to pay for higher prices for gas and food. So let me ask you this, Chair Powell, with all of that in mind, what is the basis for the argument that wages are too high and that they need to come down in order to rein in inflation?
It isn't that wages themselves are too high, it's that the rate of growth of wages is not consistent, and I'll explain this, not consistent with 2% inflation over time. So, of course, it's great when wages go up, and we want them to go up. We want people to get, strong wage increases, but at a certain point, wages become high enough that companies start raising prices, and you wind up getting high inflation. So if you just kind of reverse engineer what level of wage increases would be consistent with 2% inflation over the longer term, today's wage increases, if you look across the numbers of measures that we look at, they're significantly above that. Now, there's some evidence that they're flattening out, particularly average hourly earnings. There's some evidence that measure of wages is flattening out so that it's no longer going up. So it's really not about reducing wages. It's just having a more sustainable pace of increases.
And what would you expect if wages started to stabilize, as you say, they stop increases? How long would you expect it to be before the prices that consumers are paying would start to go down?
So
are they ever going to go down?
It depends in prices don't have to go down for inflation to go down. So if prices remain at the same level, inflation goes to zero. But it depends on different businesses. In some service, in parts of the service economy, labor costs are a very large portion of costs, and so you would think that gets passed through very quickly into prices. And so we would think we would think that pass through should be shown fairly quickly in some parts of the economy, in others less so. But over time, we would want wages to be moving up at the highest sustainable rate that's possible,
right,
and consistent with 2% inflation.
And of course, at the same time, the economy, we've got this very, very strong labor market, but simultaneously, we continue to see higher unemployment rates among African Americans, for example, nearly double the unemployment of white Americans. So, how do you see this sort of interplay between wage growth and what the Fed actions to cool demand on that underlying issue?
So we don't target wage growth, of course. Our job is price stability.
Right.
We look at wage growth because over a long period of time, it's an important factor in determining price stability. So that's really how we think about it. In terms of the disparities, we saw those disparities increase significantly at the beginning of the pandemic.